Hey everybody, it's me Margaret, and I am here with a crochet version of my Knit Baby scrap hats, finally! Now, these things are very simple, but I was really looking for a crochet way to make this knit stitch, and we've got it here. It's called the Waistcoat Stitch, or if you're British, the Waistcoat Stitch. And it's pretty simple. It's a little tedious right at first. The key is to keep your stitches loose, but I'm going to walk you through the whole process. I've got a written pattern that you can use as a guideline. It's more of a recipe for how to get the right size that you need and how to choose a different pattern. You know what to do. Oh, I'm throwing them on the ground. What to do about choosing your different patterns and how to make them happen. Think up your own, as a matter of fact. So I'll put the link to that in the description box below. I would suggest that you print it so you can kind of follow along with me as we do this. But I hope you like it because I'm really happy about it. So let's get our supplies together. You're going to need a copy of the pattern, which is linked in the description box below. Of course, you're going to need some yarn. I'm using DK weight. This is called Just Wool. It's by Hobium Yarns, the La Mia brand, and I love it. There's a 50-gram balls. This is 100% recycled wool. I used 2 balls to complete these 3 little hats, and this is all I have left. I'll put the colors that I'm using in the description box below. Now you're also going to need a hook. Now the instructions will tell you to use, that I'm using a G or 4mm hook, or hook of your choice. You can pick what you want. And I'm using a DK weight yarn, but you could use a worsted weight or whatever if you want to. And the reason why this works out is because I always give you a trick. I like to be versatile because you never know what kind of scraps you're going to have to work with. Now the construction of these hats is simple enough. We actually will do a bottom up, but you do the band back and forth until you get the length that you need. And then we'll turn it this way and begin going up. So let's start the pattern and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright, the instructions start here. We have to choose a size, of course. It says decide on a headband size. And the way you do that is you measure the head circumference, or you refer to the chart included in this pattern, because you may not have the person's head that you're creating for. Remember that hat bands are usually a couple inches shorter than the head circumference to ensure a snug fit. Now this is my head sizing chart that I keep with me at all times. This is great because I can use it whether I'm doing a top-down hat, and that's where this column comes in play, or whether I'm doing a bottom-up hat, and that's where your hat size, or this is also known as the hat band size. I included this in the pattern, and I even made a little note on it that is specific to this particular pattern, and that's here. I'm showing you that you don't need this column at all for this pattern because we're doing a bottom-up hat. What we need is this column right here. By the way, if you want a chart like this without the notations on it, I have a link on this pattern and in the description box below for you to download a clean one. But we want this one right here to help us with this particular pattern. Now, I think I'm going to do a baby hat, 0 to 6 months. So I look over here and I see that the hat size, and what we would use for the hat band measurement, is 12 to 14 inches. So I'm going to crochet a nice long band that's 12 to 14 inches. You don't have to be exact because we have stretch in our work, right? So now let's see how to do that. Okay, so we've decided on our hat band size, and we begin with round 1, chain 7. Most crochet projects begin with a slip knot, and you can make those any way you want. There's a million different tutorials on YouTube, but you know what? I very rarely start my projects with a slip knot. Let me show you what I do. I take the end and put it over my hook like this, and then I cross it behind, and that's it. Then I start my work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And look and see how that looks down at the bottom. Isn't that nice and neat without a knot there? I love that. I take the end and put it over my hook like this, and then I cross it behind. And that's it. Then I start my work. 1, and round 2 tells us 6 single crochet in the second chain from the hook and in each stitch to the end. Chain one and turn. Now you'll notice that I do things in different colors. You can take a colored pencil and do the same thing. I color code each thing that needs to be done within a round, and so I can make sure that I've done everything. So I've got 1, 2, 3. I'm going to single crochet the second chain from the hook to the end. I'm going to chain one and turn. So we've got the loop on the hook. We don't count that one. So we've got that chain. That's the first one from the hook, and we want to insert in the second one from the hook. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, 2. Now we repeat that all the way to the end. Insert the hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, both. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, both. Making single crochets. Now when we finish, we should have a row of 6 single crochets according to our pattern. So we'll count when we get to the last one. Alright, so we don't count the loop on the hook. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right there. So then the instructions said to chain one and turn. Alright, now what does the instructions say? Now look at the next, round 3 and until the end of the hat band. So this is a great TV watching project. We're going to repeat this over and over again. Whenever you see the asterisks like that, that means anything inside it will be repeated over and over until the end of the row. I've got 3 different colors, so we know at a glance we have 3 things that we have to do. We're going to single crochet in the back loop only. We're going to chain one and we're going to turn until the strip reaches the desired length. Now there's one more little important thing here that we need to read. It says be sure to end on a row where the beginning yarn tail and the working yarn are on the same side. We'll have 6 stitches on each row. So back loop only, you can see that we've got these little V's going across, right? And we normally would insert under both legs of that V. But you can see that this V is made up of a loop toward the back and a loop toward the front, and the front being the one closest to ourselves, right? So if we're doing back loop only, we are going to insert in the middle, in the top here, and pick up just that back loop. And then complete a single crochet. Okay, so we do it again. There is the V, insert, pick up the back loop, yarn over, pull through. Got the tail in the way, don't I? Yarn over, pull through 2. Pick up that back loop, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And what this is doing is actually leaving that part of the loop unworked, and that's what makes our ridge, that's what makes our ribbing. Alright, so before we do anything, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're good. So at the end of every row we chain one and turn. And then we just keep repeating that. And always you're the second chain from the hook. Here's the loop, there's the chain, here's the second one from the loop. Back loop only. Alright, so you keep repeating this process. Back loop only, 6 single crochets, chain one and turn, until you have this nice long hat band that is somewhere between 12 and 14 inches long. And then I'll meet you back and show you what to do. Okay, so I've been going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth like this, and that's what I was supposed to do until I got to 12 to 14 inches for the size that I wanted. And I did. And another thing that I was supposed to do was to make sure that I ended on the same side as the tail. You see how the tail is on the top here? And remember, we're going back and forth. So one of my back and forth rows had to end on the same side as the tail. So they're both at the top. So the next step in the pattern is to join the hatband ends. Basically, we're going to do 3 things. Again, we're going to fold the hatband so that the ends align. We're going to slip stitch the ends together, and I'm going to demonstrate that so you'll be able to see in the video later. And do not cut the yarn. So let's see what that looks like. So here's the end that I just finished, and I actually did do the chain 1 at the end, even though I'm not going to turn. And the reason why is because you need a little extra working room. Now I'm going to bring up the starting end. Okay, so it looks like this. I have my starting end on the top against the ending end, can I call it that? And I'm going to slip stitch them together. Now we don't want to get our tail caught up in this, so try to make sure we keep that out of the way. We only want the working yarn. Oh, look what I've done. Oh, I'm so glad I did that so that you could see. Make sure that your working yarn is not caught up in the middle like mine was, or we would have had a problem. Okay, so let's get the working yarn out of the way. Now bring it up and together. Okay, and here's the tail, so we want to kind of tuck that one out of the way and grab the working yarn. Okay, like I said, I did do the chain 1 at the end of the row, just as the instructions say. Alright, so what we're doing now is slip stitching the 2 of them together. So you go into the first one, which can be a little tricky, but that's why you've got that chain 1 on the end to give you some wiggle room. And then you slip right in to that loop by itself. Yarn over and pull through everything. And then repeat. Go to the next one, put it through both of them, and then grab the very next stitch, and remember there's really only one of those legs to grab. Yarn over and pull through everything. Go into the full stitch, go across and pick up that single stitch, yarn over and pull through everything. And you see you're making a nice little chain right there. Okay, let's continue with these last 3. The last one on the end here, I just want that 1. See, I was trying to get 2 there, but I really just want 1 because that's all I had based on how I began the project. Okay, so now we have it joined like that. And it says, do not cut the yarn. So the next thing we're going to be doing is what's called a setup row for the hat portion, which basically involves chain 1 and then doing a single crochet all the way around. We'll talk about that in a minute, but let's check these 2 notes first of all. Note 1 says this hat is worked in continuous rounds to avoid a seam. Your next row begins at the stitch marker. Remember to replace it on the first stitch of each row. And this is important too. The number of stitches that you have will equal the number of hatband rows. Because if you're doing a different size than I do, you'll have different number of rows, right? Keeping this number on each row will ensure no inadvertent increase or decrease. Very important information. All right, now let's see how this is done. We chain 1 and then we're going to do a regular single crochet in each end stitch of the hatband and place a stitch marker on the first stitch. And don't join. I'm going to tighten this up and chain 1 like the instructions said, and then I'm going to turn my work like this so that the nice part is on the inside and I'm working on the part away from me, not this part but this part. Now I'm doing this flip because I want the seam that we created, see it right there? I want that to be on the inside of my hat so that the outside looks like this. This is the way I construct all my hats anyway. So now the instructions said to make a single crochet in each one of the single stitch rows. Now let me tell you the secret. There is actually no right way to do this. This is the way I do it. I see ridges have 2 rows. Okay, you've got this side and this side. That's a single crochet row, and this is a single crochet row. And then the same things. This is one and this is one. So when I look at the top of what I have, I can see there is a hole right here and then a ridge. A hole and then a ridge. So that's how I put my single crochets. I put a single crochet in the hole and a single crochet in the ridge. One in the hole, one in the ridge, one in the hole, one in the ridge, until I've got them all the way around. So that looks like this. Here's one in that hole, single crochet. And then I'm going to just pick up some part of this ridge, anything I can get, because it's kind of tricky. All right, then I do the hole, and then I just pick up something here in this ridge. And that way I'm going to have one single crochet over each of these single crochet rows. So keep going. One in the hole. You see where I'm talking about when I say hole? There's right there. And then one in the top of the ridge. And I'll meet you back around. I've come to the end, and how am I sure that I'm through? Well, I know I started in a hole. I went hole, ridge, like that. I just finished in a ridge, and I'm back here. So that right there was my first stitch. Now, to make this easier on yourself, mark that as soon as you complete it. Then you won't have this question. The instructions told me to do that. I just didn't pay attention, did I? Mark the first stitch. And there it is. Hole, ridge. Now I'm back to hole and then ridge. Now you'll see that the next part of this is called a recipe. There's not hard and fast instructions in this part. And the reason why is because it's really going to depend upon what pattern you end up choosing. And these are only suggestions. You can think up your own. But basically we have some things that are in common for all the hats, and that's where the recipe comes into play here. Now the first note here is work a few rows of, and this is called waistcoat stitch, to create a bit of space above the ribbing before the pattern starts. Now let's look at that. These hats that I did have 2 rows. I have 2 rows right here. That's basically 2 waistcoat stitches right here. Okay, so let's talk about the waistcoat stitch, or waistcoat if you are British, or at least that's what dictionary.com told me. All right, now let's talk about how to make it. If we were to do a single crochet, we would insert our hook right there, going underneath the V, both sides. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both. That is a single crochet in American terms too, by the way. But for the waistcoat stitch, we are actually not going right there. We are actually inserting our hook in the bottom portion of this V right there. All right, you see how I went right into the center of that V. And when you flip it over on the back, look what it looks like. Here is the V that we normally would go under, plus there's another little piece right there, right there. Now we do a regular old single crochet. Go through the same motions that you normally would. You yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, 2. Okay, now you can't really tell what's going on when you have a single color, but it'll become clear to you later. The hardest part is finding the next single crochet in this very first setup row, and it happens to be right there. Now here is where we would normally go in, like that. We don't want to do that. We want to go in the middle. I'm going to use my pencil to show you there. In the middle of the V. And you can see I've got all kinds of stuff going on in the back. That's exactly as it should be. So yarn over, pull through, and you may have to work with it because it's a little tight. That first row is a little tight. And keep in mind you don't want to do it very tight, so you don't have to go through this on the following rows. So when you pull it through, make sure you've got your crochet hook just kind of sitting on top right there, nice and comfy, not pulled so tightly it can't move. Just kind of sitting on top like that. Yarn over and pull through both nice and gently. Okay, then hold it so that you can see, find your next stitch. We did it in a hole. This was on top of the ridge, and here's the one that was in a hole. And if it helps you, poke a hole in it first so you can find it, like I'm doing here, right there. Let's see how I got it now. Yarn over, pull through, make sure it's loosey-goosey, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, that was on top of a hole, so this next one will be right there on top of the ridge, right there. Kind of helps if you push at a downward angle to get underneath that stuff in the back. See, kind of loosey-goosey on top, yarn over, pull through both. Just keep working until you see it clearly first, and then put the crochet hook and go downward. Pull it up, sitting on top of the row, yarn over, pull through both. See how that's not loose, but it's not tight. And that's exactly what you want. Loose enough, but you don't want it to be all loosey-goosey. And that should make the next row a lot easier to do. Okay, so you get the drift all the way around. You're doing that. And you can kind of see how it's starting to look like that knit stitch right there. Look, I'm on the second row of the waistcoat stitch, and it's looking really good, and it's so much easier. After you've got that first row of waistcoat stitch done, it becomes a little easier, and I think it's because we're doing it looser, you know, where you kind of lay it across the top up there and pull through both. But you can see how it pulls all those stitches up straight, and everything's just looking so much nicer now. So I'm going to finish doing that, the second row of waistcoat stitch, until I get to my marker. So for this tutorial, I think I'm going to choose this pattern choice right here, which essentially is, we're working from the bottom up, right? You're going to have row 1 is going to be the contrast color, and you use that all the way across. And then row 2 is where we're going to alternate. And so we'll have the main color of the contrast, the main color of the contrast, or vice versa. And then we have another solid row right here. So I'm actually doing, it's basically a 3-row pattern. So here we are, and I've got one more stitch before I get to my stitch marker. This is the last one. So what I'm going to do is insert as we normally would for the waistcoat, yarn over, and we're going to pull up that color. But we're not going to finish with the regular color. We're going to add in our contrasting color, which in this case is this maroon color, this wine color, and pull through. Okay, we're removing the stitch marker because this is the first one in this row, making sure I've got the working yarn and not the tail. I'm going to continue with the waistcoat stitch in this wine color, using the same skills that I've figured out, loosely enough to where it's not that difficult, letting the loops kind of sit up on top so it's not too tight. When you insert it in there, kind of go down and behind instead of straight across, and that helps you find the right place. So you can see I have completed my maroon row, and I'm right back around to the beginning. Okay, there's that last stitch. I need to do something with that. So first, let's look at our pattern. We just completed this first row of contrasting color. In our case, it's wine, right down here. And now we're going to do this alternating row. We'll be doing wine and that oatmeal color, wine, oatmeal. just as we have here with the blue and the gray. But there's one other thing that we need to remember about the waistcoat stitch, and that is that we never change the top color when we're inserting the contrasts. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So here I'm going to do this last stitch. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start my new row, which would be right here, with this color. This will be my first V. Now I'm going to make the next V the other color, this oatmeal or whatever it's called. So what I'm going to do is pick up, I'm going to insert and pick up one loop in the contrasting color, because it's only the one loop that makes that V. And then I'm going to complete the stitch with the other color. Now I'll go over here and do a wind. And you can kind of look at it and see if you need to adjust it. But it should be kind of leaning a little bit. Leaning to one side is the nature of crochet. And you'll notice as you continue on, everything begins to pull up straight again. So it'll be particularly noticeable. Did I get that out right? Particularly noticeable in this waistcoat stitch. All right, so here I've done a wind. So my next one is going to be the oatmeal. So I'll pull up the oatmeal, get it the right size, drop it, and finish with the wind. And then I'm going to do a wind. So this is an oatmeal. So all I'm doing for the contrasting color is pulling up that first stitch like that. But I finish with that color that I'm inserting it all into. Okay, so I'm using wine to create a background, and then I'm inserting the alternating oatmeals to give it the dot 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 effect. And right now that looks like it's completely the wrong size, doesn't it? But as we go along, you're going to see how it pulls itself into position. So basically the way you do this is you memorize where it needs to be, like right there. Hold it. Finish the stitch. We notice I used the hook to help me out too. If I put the hook right on one of those half of the V's, then I can dig down in there easier and pull it up. Oh wait, I'm sorry, it wasn't wine's turn, was it? It was oatmeal's turn. There. Get it the size I want, and then I'll put my finger on it right here to kind of hold it in place while I switch to get the wine and pull it through. And just kind of leave it alone. It's going to take care of itself. And see, it just works out. It ends up pulling itself straight up and down, and the pieces look even. Each stitch looks nice and even though it looks weird right there, like it's too big. So we're going to continue this pattern over and over again. Wind, and then pulling up just the oatmeal and finishing with the wind until we get all the way back to the beginning. That's what it looks like. That is the one row of the solid color wind and then one row of alternating, always remembering to finish, to top it off with the wind. So now I've come here to the very end. Remember, we're not joining, so my next stitch will be right there, and I'm going to complete a total wine color row. Did I say that right? Complete one row of wine color. Again, still using the waistcoat stitch, because that's what gives us this knit look, the knit stitch look. Because see what we just did? We're actually covering up the typical row that a crocheter uses. Watch, when we stick it in that knit stitch, in that waistcoat stitch, and pull it up, do you see how we're actually covering that top part of the row? So that the only part of the stitch that's visible is actually just those two legs of the V. So you no longer see the complete structure of the single crochet. What you're seeing is just that V part. And we cover the rest of it up. And I'll go all the way around to complete the pattern. Alright, so this is my last stitch for this row. And how do I know? Because I didn't put my marker back in. Because you can see I've got 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. But right here, I've just got 1, 2. So I know I need another one right there. Ta-da! Alright, so now I've actually finished the pattern. But if you look here at all the pattern instructions, it tells you always end the pattern with a row of waistcoat stitch. Always end the pattern with a row of waistcoat stitch for every pattern, no matter what you do. And the reason why is it just kind of seals the deal. It kind of puts that finishing touch on the last row right here so that everything still continues to look like a knit stitch. So now I'm ready to go and switch over to my main color. So as you can see, isn't that cute? Really like this pattern. Alright, so what we're going to do next is just do regular half double crochet. Remember, we're traveling upwards, okay? So we're just going to do half double crochet to complete our hat. But let's check this pattern. Back up here at the top, it told us to, work the few rows first before you do the pattern. Then you work the pattern choice, which is what we did. So now we're right here. Half double crochet approximately 2 inches below desired hat height. Just for the sake of easy math, I'm going to make my hat 5 inches tall. 5 inches. So I take 2 inches away from that. I will crochet until my hat is 3 inches tall. And then I'll begin these decreases. So I did a few rows of half double crochet. I measured and my hat is now approximately 3 inches high, so it's time to begin those decreases. Alright, the decreases are really simple. For the first row, we're going to do 5 half double crochet and then 2 together. 5 half double crochet and 2 together. Repeat all around. And don't worry if the count isn't exact at the end of the row. Seamless crochet is very forgiving. So I'm starting a row. So I will do 1, and I'm going to replace my marker so we'll know when we finish the row.
2, 3, 4.
And 5 half double crochets, and now we're going to do 2 together. Now what this involves, there's lots of different ways to do 2 together, so don't everybody tell me I'm doing it wrong. This is the way I like to do it, and it works because I like the height of it. Yarn over, act like you're doing a regular half double crochet. Yarn over and pull that yarn up. Then, instead of completing the stitch, go right into the next one, yarn over and pull up another stitch. And then yarn over and pull through everything. By doing it this way, my stitches are the same height. So some people might tell me I'm doing it wrong, but do it however you like to do it. And here's a little tip. What we're actually doing is drawing the hat in. We're making it tighter, fewer stitches. And so this right here where we've done 2 together actually has the crochet pulling towards our hook. You see how it's going in that direction? That direction. So sometimes we might be tempted to put our next stitch right there. You see it? But actually that was the second stitch. And how do you tell this? Go ahead and pull it up. If you pull it straight up perpendicular, you can easily see how the yarn is pulling from that stitch. so we know it's taken. We don't have to use that one anymore. So we go into that one. So whenever you're confused in crochet, that's a really good trick that you can learn, is to make your stitch stand up straight and perpendicular on here, and then you can easily tell where your next stitch is. So now we do 5 again, and then 2 together. So you yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over, pull up, then yarn over, pull up, yarn over, pull through all, and you complete all the way around. Okay, I'm coming up toward the end of this row, and I want you to see what's going on. I did 2 together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's do 2 together. And now, in perfect world, there's going to be 5 here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But you know what? It's okay. When you do a hat that is seamless, you're not going to notice this. 4. Okay. So here's something that you can do, and I do this all the time. You can either start over right here for your next row, exactly, or I'll just kind of do 2 together right here and call that 1. There, I'll call that my first stitch now. Crochet is not an exact science, so you can fudge it a little bit, which is so wonderful. So the second decrease row would be exactly what you'd expect. It's 4 half double crochet and then 2 together all the way around. So I'm going to complete my 4 on this row. 4 and then 2 together, just as we did before. And I'm going to repeat that all the way around. So I just finished my little set here, and I have 2 more stitches. I'm just going to do regular old half double crochet in there and call it good. Don't you love it when you can be relaxed about something? And with the instructions, you can see that it just keeps going down. This next row, we're going to do 3 half double crochet and then 2 together, repeat all around, then 2, 2 together, repeat all around, then 1, 2 together, repeat all around. And when I'll come back when we get to this row 6. Okay, so I'm on that round where I do 1 and then 2 together. So I just did 2 together right here. So I'll do 1 right here, and then 2 together. And then look and see what I've got left. I have 2 left over, so I'm just going to do regular old half double crochets in those leftovers. Ooh, marker. Okay. Now the very last decrease here says half double crochet, 2 together, repeat all around. So we don't do any regular half double crochets at all. We do 2 together all the way around, and this can get really tricky trying to figure out exactly where to put your stitches. Let's remove that marker for now. And to be honest with you, I usually don't even put this marker back in. And the reason why is I just keep crocheting 2 together until the opening has shrunk enough to suit me, that I feel like I can close it shut with a needle, a tapestry needle. Alright, here we got a little, it's harder to work with now because the opening is smaller. So situate it so where you can see what's going on. And then you just make sure where you're going in. There was the last stitch there, so I'm going in here. 1, 2. 1, 2. And so you have to keep moving your work so that you can see what's going on. And always stand that stitch up if you need to make sure that you can see where the last stitch was, so you'll know where to go in for the next stitch. Let's check the opening. See, I think I can get it a touch smaller, and you don't want to go till it's very, all the way closed like this, because sometimes it makes a point. It makes a pointy top, and so you just Just eye it the whole time and make your judgment call. I don't know, I'll do one more. Here and here. Draw them all up. Okay, I'm going to call this good. So I'm going to cut my yarn and pull it out. Now we need a tapestry needle. Well, I just realized in my haste I did not have my microphone on for that last part, so I may have to voice over that. Okay, so now what I will do is actually continue in the same direction that I was going and just pick up the stitches like this. And they'll just draw close. See how that did? Now I can just sew my ends in so that they'll be invisible. So there's the close, and I think it looks pretty good. Now I'll sew these ends in and I'll be finished. And there it is. There's our little baby hat. Isn't it cute? And you can see the top here looks great. So I just decreased, and you can see it shaped just as we want it to be, and it worked fantastically. So I love it. So now that you understand that waistcoat stitch, you'll understand that only the first part of the stitch is showing. So keep in mind that as you'll design your own patterns or use these, you'll have to remember to use the other color to finish the stitch so that only the little V is contrasting like that.